On this episode of Audiobook Club, David Mitchell follows in the footsteps of many authors before him to give us a 12-hour tour of England's historical and colourful royalty with a good dose of humour. And you know what, Matt? I'm going to play a clip.
King Richard III. The dead king was then stripped naked, his crown plonked on Henry's head, and taken to Leicester, where he was buried in the Church of Greyfriars, which, in 1538, closed down to be replaced by something, which was replaced by something, which was, insert 500 years of town planning here, replaced by something, which was replaced by a car park. He lay there for centuries until he was discovered by Channel 4, only about 10 years after I was.
Audiobook Club with Steve Phillips and Matthew Layton.
Hello and welcome to Audiobook Club, the podcast about audiobooks that is slightly less well behaved than Richard III's nephews, where we are looking at Unruly, a history of England's kings and queens, written and read by David Mitchell. Matt is here as ever. This is a stocking filler for you, Matt, for Christmas.
Hello, Steve. Yeah, it's definitely a book you could give as a gift, and I know that you are, well, you're a bit of a fan, aren't you, Steve?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I like it. I like me a bit of David Mitchell. I just like his sort of view on things, and I do sometimes think I used to live and maybe still do live the life of Mark Corrigan from Peep Show, to be honest with you. So yeah, I see a kindred spirit, and I like whenever he turns his attention to a subject, I'm more likely than not to listen to it and to buy it and recommend it on any passing Audiobook Club podcast.
There may be others, Steve, but from what you were saying to me off air earlier, we have some chart news.
Yes, we were at one point number 54 in the book charts on Apple Podcasts, but we kind of bounce around, sort of bottom half of the top 100s until, we've been going it a few years now, so we're still waiting for that overnight success, really, aren't we? It's a long night. This is a long night, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's long days and long nights, Steve. I have to say you've got me falling back into the old trap of checking the numbers when you get up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. It's quite stressful. I think I need to step away and calm down.
I used to have hair, used to have hair before I discovered the charts. Yeah. Anyway, to today's book. So, Matt, what did you make of the author, the text, the audiobook production and performance, our usual three-step process?
Well, let's start with the author, Steve. David James Stewart Mitchell was born on the 14th of July, 1974. He's a British comedian, actor and writer. He was born in Salisbury. He is the son of two hotel managers. His mother is Welsh, hailing from Swansea, and his father was born to a family that was originally Scottish. So he sees himself as British rather than specifically English, which I'm not sure is reflected in this book. Never mind. His parents moved to Oxford and started lecturing in hotel management so they didn't have to do the ridiculous hours. Mitchell was educated at Abingdon School, probably in the same year as BBC reporter Simon Jones, I think. He went to Peterhouse College in Cambridge in 1993, where he studied history, and then he began performing with the Cambridge Footlights, of which he became president. So the Footlights is the comedy troupe in Cambridge, where in the 1960s you found Messrs Palin, and Cleese and others, who then became Monty Python, and then a slight step down in the 80s, when Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie were prominent Footlights members, and then in the 90s, it was the turn of Mitchell and Webb. My research indicates that he met Robert Webb during rehearsals for a Footlights production of Cinderella, but I happen to know that's not true. Rob Webb and two independently verified sources, one is me and one is Robert Webb on Desert Island Discs. David Mitchell was first encountered by Robert Webb as a cast member of Go to Work on an Egg, which was a 1993 Cambridge sketch show performed by Cambridge students, not the official Footlights. And yeah, I know this because my mate Ali was their drummer. He's also married to writer, television presenter, and hardcore poker player Victoria Mitchell-Corrin, which suggests that maybe, and this is something we'll come on to later, he is not necessarily the nasal-voiced, irritated person that he portrays on television in his real life. I think we'll come back to it later. Steve, can you take over with the professionals? I've given you the usual bullet points of the key points in his British comedy career, and you are our expert in all that.
Well, yes, I mean, they kind of had Peep, so the two things kind of ran together. So Peep Show is obviously the sitcom that most people would say made their names, written by Sam Bain and Jesse Armstrong. The sort of the premise being that it was originally called POV, or point of view, where the actors have cameras on their heads, and so the point of view that you see is actually that you're looking directly at the actors you're talking to, rather than a traditional sitcom, which is cameras sort of on the set, just sort of taking in all the action.
Yes.
Which was an amazing critical and ratings success in the end. Not so at the beginning; it was all DVD sales sort of kept it going. But Peep Show is a legendary show.
Yeah, and part of that legend is the way the chemistry between the two lead characters works. And I need your help defining this, Steve. David Mitchell and Robert Webb, they kind of portray Disneyfied, extended, exaggerated versions of their own personalities, I think. I
see this sort of the same dynamic with you and I. So I very much like to stay within the letter of the law. Don't like being too, things being too adventurous or too out there. And you take a few more censorship risks, let's be honest, on this podcast, and that's kind of the dynamic of Jeremy and Mark in Peep Show. This is David Mitchell's Mark to Jeremy played by Robert Webb, and that's kind of how it works there. So it's a little bit. So it's if you've not seen Peep Show before, it's basically it's a flat based sitcom where it's two flatmates living together and the scrapes they get into with relationships primarily, and the clash of cultures as well. So it's brilliant. It's a breeding ground for talent. Olivia Colman was a big name to come out of Peep Show as well, but alongside that, so there was Mitchell and Webb, but there was also Olivia Colman, who they collaborated with a lot on their sketch shows as well as Peep Show as well. So that Mitchell and Webb situation was kind of, I think, the first thing maybe, which was sort of tucked away on UK TV Play or something, or G2, whatever they called it. The one that didn't get sort of watched very much to start off with, but that became Mitchell and Webb Sound on Radio 4, which they may have done at the same time, and then Mitchell and Webb Look was on BBC Two. So they had their sketch show. There's some brilliant sketch shows. One of the audiobooks I did download actually during the course of the year while we were off the air was the entire Mitchell and Webb Sound, all of their sketch shows together, in a very bargain basement price. One credit for about 18 hours of content. So go get, everybody.
When you think of the word king, what image springs to mind? This might be a bad time to ask you. You're listening to a book all about kings. I've been mentioning them like mad. People in crowns will be buzzing round your head like tweeting birds round a concussed cartoon character. Still, I don't think I've got the rhetorical power to drive out the main kingly picture from your mind. Think of a king, and your brain is likely to conjure up a portrait of Henry VIII. It'll probably be one of the Hans Holbein ones, where he's all square. Square ends to his feet, which are planted wide apart so they're directly underneath his square shoulder pads, framing his big square chest. And plonked on top, his large square head, with beard covering the bottom two corners and hat covering the top two. The slightly jaunty angle of the latter utterly undermined by the extremely unjaunty look on the cruel, piggy-eyed face. He looks a right snuck. In summary, that's what he was.
Remember to stick an E on the end of the podcast for this episode.
Don't worry, mate, I'll bleep it.
Oh, good. Thank goodness for that. Yes. I do get slightly unnerved when it's David Mitchell saying that. When he swears and says the C word. It's just doesn't sit with me, you know what I mean? Doesn't sit with me.
You want him to stay in character, don't you, Steve? You want him to stick to the David Mitchell that you know. My problem is that exaggerated character is great for listening to short snippets, but I'm not sure it's someone you'd want to spend 12 hours in a lift with, or indeed 12 hours listening to the whole audiobook at that constant tone.
The poor kings of France were miserable for hundreds of years because there were times, like the one we're talking about now, when there were hardly any bits of their kingdom that they were in charge of. England is different, and English kings really do aspire to run the place in quite a control-freaky way. It sounds obvious, but I actually find it strange. Personally, I don't want to be in charge of much. It's an admin hassle, and it makes things your fault. I'd much rather carp from the sidelines. Political leaders today, in Britain at least, are increasingly of my way of thinking. Many politicians seem to want to hold high office, but for most of the things that actually happen, which inevitably go a bit wrong and piss people off, to be someone else's responsibility. David Cameron was great at this. His government did lots of things that people didn't like. Austerity, NHS reform, hiked tuition fees, a new national curriculum, police cuts. But they were all portrayed by the Prime Minister as someone else's policy. George Osborne, Andrew Lansley, the Lib Dems, Michael Gove and Theresa May were the people actually doing this regrettable stuff. Cameron just stood outside Downing Street looking plausible.
That's a beautifully crafted bit of writing delivered in an appropriately snide way, I think it is the way I would put that.
Yeah, he does that very, very well. I mean, this is why there are endless clips on YouTube of his, incredulity and him breaking other contestants down and their stories on Would I Lie to You? Because of that's what he does. That's his thing. That's a David Mitchell thing. Very unique to him.
Nasal twang pedant.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that does sound derisory, but it's actually quite funny. It's a plus point, I think.
It is, if you've got 5 other people taking part in the quiz show, but for 12 and a half hours, it was a bit too much for me. And I what I wanted to do was skip to the kings and queens that I knew. So I went, okay, Henry II. I quite liked Henry II. I can't quite remember why. I listened to a bit of that. And then I went, well, obviously Henry VIII is good then, and it'll make it look like I've got halfway through the book, because that's about halfway to the 20th century.
Sid James, of course, yeah.
Indeed. And then I went, oh, right, now I want to let's do Queen Elizabeth first, and then we'll do Victoria and the Queen. And the answer is, he stopped at Elizabeth I.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably because maybe Penguin thought, there's Unruly too.
Well, I'm sure there is, and the conclusion,
or two Unruly, TOO Unruly
as well. You've already done that gag recently, except in the future. The rest is history, right? 1066 and all that. Those are kind of the things that I think about when I think of history. You're either learning or laughing. And then I just looked at the cover of this book, and I went, it's kind of a crown with some starkish writing, a lot of cream space, which I think is important. And I suddenly I know where I've seen a cover like that before. Shots Miscellany.
Oh, okay. Right. I really wish I'd gone to your university. Hang on while I Google that.
It's not a university thing, Steve. It's a toilet book.
No, but I see. Yes, but this is the sort of book that I categorically never saw at Middlesex University.
It's great. I'll get it for you for Christmas. It's a toilet book.
I stand by what I just said.
And what it is it's cleverly made so that you can read it in small bite-sized chunks. Nobody reads it from beginning to end. It's just if you feel like a bit of that while you've got a couple of minutes on you. This is before even Snake, let alone the modern smartphone. You would have a book that had morsels of trivia or intelligent lessons. So I think... Basically, again, we say airport novel. That's not an insult from us. I'm going to say toilet book.
Okay. Should we have an episode in 2025 dedicated to toilet books?
I think we should.
We should definitely. And maybe break it down into periods of time. This is a good book for maybe a 5-minute session. If you like to go for a full half hour.
What's the other one, Steve? Come on. The Profanosaurus.
Oh, now we've got to do an episode on the Profanosaurus.
Well, again, I'm not, and this is the thing. This is the first time I've done this, and I'm going to say that for the first time in my experience, I don't think the audiobook has added to the experience. It was very difficult as somebody who wanted to be as diligent as possible and do as much of this book as I could. You know, the rhythm, if you listen to the clips we played already, the rhythms and the way the subjects are broken up are all the same. There's a rhythm to it all the way through the book. But there's also just this bit where I don't think you'd want to be stuck in a lift with David Mitchell for 12 hours, would you?
Well, I wouldn't mind, to be honest. It probably would cheer you. I think this is where we maybe differ. We're
diverging. Well, thank goodness, because as we always say, we don't like to give entirely negative reviews and tear stuff to pieces, because, you know, we realise that if people do take our recommendations, that, you know, it's going to cost them £8 and 12 hours of their life. So
I'd like to think we'd get on quite well in a lift, actually, to be honest. I think we'd just, you know, rub along. Obviously not physically because it's a lift, because it's close proximity, but metaphorically rub along, you know? I wouldn't mind, actually. Yeah.
Well, you know what? This is fair enough, but I stand by your right to love this book, and people who have listened to us for a while may be guided by a larger experience of knowing what your tastes and my tastes are, and perhaps be able to make a decision based on that, whether they're going to drop a credit on this or not. But one of the problems I had is just, I'm not sure. I quite like our characters, Steve. I think we're relatively likeable in these exaggerated versions of ourselves that we are. But I feel that David Mitchell, I wish he had the room to develop and to, you know, he might want to do it. Jack Dee did it the other way around, didn't he? He went from smiley, chirpy, chappy comedian to sort of long-faced, po-faced, miserable character. It's a shame that David Mitchell doesn't really have a chance to change gears in that way.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. I do wonder, actually, it's a question for you. Earlier on, 5-10 minutes ago, you talked about you're either laughing or learning. Do you not think that you can do both at the same time?
It's a good point. Yes, you can, and you know, I try and do that with what you know, when we do stuff here, you know, when it's trying to tell people what they are, but give them a laugh along the way, sneak them the vegetables, as I always say. But I guess my balance, and maybe it's because I think I know how to do this stuff, that you know, I'm over examining what he's doing and over analysing it. But I do think it is generally, I think it's an important thing to do. The teachers you remember from school are the ones who were funny. And hopefully you remember some of the things that you learnt in their classes or from them in a pastoral role.
Can you say that again?
Pastoral role.
Fantastic. We're going to clip that up.
I'm the Reverend Richard Coles, me. I used to be an eraser.
Oh, I tell you what, I saw a clip of him talking about the communards. Saying how the whole reason they put the communards together was to get rid of Thatcher by releasing covers of 70s disco classics. And where is she now? It was in his live show. Go see it. He's funny.
Do you know what? I'm reminded of the time during the mid-90s in Britpop's height. All of the Britpop bands, including Blur, Oasis and Radiohead, all got together to save children by the War Child charity with B-sides.
Yeah, just the B-sides.
Yeah. We're gonna do 20 of them B-sides, and we're gonna So it's my thing was, I hope that you and I come across as relatively sincere in what we're doing. I said we'd come back to Victoria Mitchell Corran, and the answer is a woman that intelligent is not going to put up with a man who's actually like Mark from Peep Show, or, you know, just purely snide, who has no side. I've met women, I don't know if you have, Steve, but they tend to like them in a little more three-dimensional than that. And yeah, I just...
Yeah.
I think it's in a strange way. I think it's the sincerity issue, if you know what I mean. And again, maybe if I had just got tweets of it or a small paragraph, I would have been all right for it. But I'm going to do a naughty thing now, and as we are preparing for our Best of the Guests show in 2 weeks' time in 2025, I've been listening back to some of our older material and some of the books we reviewed, and I was just reminded of Ben Folds' book, A Dream About Lightning Bugs, which is all about how he learned expensive lessons very cheaply and got away with stuff. And there's one bit in the book where he gets his first paid music gig, and he sees an ad in the paper saying, we're looking for a polka band. And it was a new German restaurant serving schnitzels and beers were opening up in the town. And he went down there and convinced the woman who owned the restaurant, Veronica, that he, with his synthesizer, could do 4 instruments for the price of one. So they had him fitted up for lederhosen and clogs immediately. And he started making 150 bones a night, as he put it. But he only knew 4 polka tunes and a Viennese waltz. So he just played them over and over and over again. And then one evening, a couple who were regulars there and sat in the front row took him aside and had a little word with him.
They felt obligated, they said, to warn me that I was doing everyone in the room a great disservice as I performed. They told me they sensed I was bored. They told me it was obvious that I thought I was better than everyone else in the room, and no matter how polite my outward demeanor, my inner smug boredom was harshing the mellows of everyone near. This mellow harshing would radiate from me into their lives and to others, and so on. They even insisted that the knock-on effect of this sort of insincerity was at the heart of the world's problems: war, world famine, prejudice. I wasn't sure I wanted to take credit for all of that. They were there, they said, to teach me to appreciate the power I was wielding, because I had an unusually strong aura and charisma. Well, shucks. Charisma carries with it responsibility. They suggested that when I performed, I should always be present, kind, and engaged. They implored me to always remember that the intention with which you play each note has an effect on the people listening. An audience's time, presence, and attention are great gifts to a performer. I too had a gift to share, but it wasn't worth anything if I wasn't mindful. I should never sleepwalk my way through playing music, skipping across each note as if each one was a step closer to getting the fuck out of there. It was far braver to actually care, they concluded, to savor each phrase, to give something of myself, no matter what kind of music it was. They'd essentially declared me to be an existential chicken, not rising to the challenge of performing earnestly with intent. I knew better, they said, and they were certain I was capable of more. To be honest, I thought they were pretty fucking creepy, and I wasn't happy I missed out on my schnitzel break. But I had to admit that some of what they said struck a profound chord. I probably was bored and smug inwardly, though I didn't think it was obvious to anyone else. I figure I was giving it the old showbiz treatment. Wasn't I energetic enough? Nah, that wasn't the point, they said. I just wasn't being genuine. I had to admit they were right. I was phoning it in.
I understand. I like David. I just like David Mitchell as he is. I wouldn't change him. Wouldn't change him. I think this is just where taste comes in, to be honest, isn't it? It's what you know what you're getting. You're going to buy a David Mitchell audiobook. You know exactly what you're going to be getting. You know who you're going to get, how he's going to talk, what he's going to say, how he's going to express himself through the words and everything. And I think if you're not into it, you probably won't buy it. If you are, you know you're going to get some history, but also it's going to be funny, then you would get this audiobook. It's a recommendation, certainly from my half of Audiobook Club here.
And I'm probably overthinking it. And again, I always have a problem with the likes of The Office or Alan Partridge or Mark from Peep Show, because I worry that I'm that kind of knob end too. I've always said this to you, Steve. So this again is probably me being oversensitive, weirdly.
I don't know. I think I share exactly where you're coming from. The deep inward looking psychosis, and do I have the right to even breathe or exist or to touch the floor with my feet? But I think we're okay. We'll be all right. So you can, if you don't like it, you don't have to recommend it, mate.
No, and I'm really glad you do. And I know that loads of people love him for his, what is perceived as his down to earth, no nonsense honesty. I don't receive it in that way, Steve.
Well, that's an unruly stocking filler from us then on Audiobook Club. That is David Mitchell. Unruly, A History of England's Kings and Queens by David Mitchell, read by David Mitchell. 11 hours, 39 minutes. Came out back end of September 2023, in fact, from Penguin Audio. If you've not bought it yet or want to gift it to someone for Christmas, I'd certainly recommend it. And in a roundabout way, I think Matt does secretly too,
Have you been listening? You're not listening again. Are you listening to next week's book while we're recording the podcast again?
Propaganda. No, what Matt actually said was he was resoundingly recommending this book. Anyway, next week, there's no book. There's no homework to do, because it's the end of term. We're coming to the end of the year. And next week, it's the Audiobook Club Imaginary Awards Gala, which this year comes from the Audiobook Club of your imagination on London's glittering Park Lane.
Yes, we'll be looking back at some of the best audiobooks of the year. The likes of Richard Osman, Ben McIntyre, Miranda Hart, Sir David Jason, Bob Mortimer, and many, many more won't be there.
Yes, but some will. R.F. Kwang as well. Rebecca Kwang, she'll be in there.
Yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah.
I've got a sneaky feeling. I've seen the results. Mate. Don't say anything. I've seen some of the results.
Don't ruin the magic of the Audiobook Club Theatre of the Mind, Steve.
You're right. My mind is addled. I think both our minds are addled now. Right then. So if you want to suggest your favourite audiobooks of 2024, then get in touch with us. Audiobook Show on Instagram and on Blue Sky as well. We've got a Facebook page, Audiobook Club, if you want to join that and have a chat there. We will. I've actually posted a picture of using AI, summing up audiobooks in 2024. And if you go to our Instagram, Audiobook Show, you'll see just how deeply harrowing and unsettling that image is. So, in some ways, maybe don't go and have a look, but also do, if you know what I mean. Don't want to do ourselves down in a very sort of English kind of way, do we, Matt, given what we've just been talking about?
Are you doing it like a fade-out end? Normally we end quite punchy. It sounds like we're just rattling on a little bit and the show will gradually fade to black and we've not really got a particularly good conclusion.
We have to let go of our listener, don't we? Please move on to your next podcast in the list. Yeah, do that right now.
Yeah, please. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here anymore. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.